we got engaged. We wanted to live in a really dynamic neighborhood, so my wife suggested we go look at Arcadia, and it led us there, but we couldn't afford to live in Arcadia, so we went to where 36 in Campbell, which we called Arcadia Heights. We got as close as we could. And this is a true story. We had 2 boxers at the time, and we were walking our dogs one morning, and we had just returned from my 30th birthday, and we were fortunate enough to go to Italy, and I'll touch on that in a second. And we walked by the historic Arcadia post office building at 40th and Campbell. And by Phoenix standards, that's an old building, 1959. By Italian standards, I think it's brand new, but we appreciated the red brick and the mid-century modern architecture, and we thought it was interesting. So we kind of made note of that. So back to my Italy trip. For my 30th birthday, my wife and I went with my mom and dad to Italy. And we talked to Chris Bianco before we went, and we told him our intention to visit small towns. We've been before, we've been in the major cities, and he said, why don't you take a look at staying in Lucca, above Florence. So I got online, I rented a farmhouse in an Alfa Romeo, we all went over, and our intent was to get lost in little towns. So we drove around for 10 days. And every one of these little towns we visited had this little wine bar. And we ended up in there every afternoon, drinking wine, my mom, my dad, my wife and I, meeting the owners. It was super casual, you didn't have to get dressed up. So when we returned from this trip, my wife and I really wanted to experience that again in Phoenix, and we really struggled to find that place. We were ending up at the Royal Palms every night. For those who know the Royal Palms, it's a beautiful property, but you kind of got to get dressed up. I'm a Vans and jeans guy. And I was getting these credit card bills at the end of the month for hundreds of dollars that I really couldn't afford. So we kept walking our dogs by this neighborhood, and we had this idea to create this wine bar. And at that point, there really wasn't a casual wine bar in Phoenix. And I had been in the restaurant business in service positions since I was in high school and bought my first car. And we decided we would give it a shot. So we met the landlord, and we kind of pitched him our idea. And he quickly put us on the back burner. At the time, I didn't realize that a lot of other restaurateurs in town were looking at this space, including all the big names you can imagine. It would have probably given me some anxiety, but I dug in, decided this was a good thing to do. I was taking everybody I could at 40th and Campbell to look at this space. And I gotta tell you, I was hard-pressed to find one person that thought it was a good idea. And if any of you were around back then, it was a pretty beat-up strip mall in front, where the Run Oranges now was a beer, cigarettes, lottery ticket, pornography rental store. There was a Domino's Pizza that was getting held up at gunpoint 3 or 4 times a month. And some other seedy businesses. The building that Postino's in was a music warehouse and mail order shop, but there was needles in the alley and really not a lot of good stuff going on. Anyway, we thought it was a good idea. We stuck with it. We went for it. And sure and behold, we got the landlord to agree to a lease deal. And then I had to go home and tell my wife, we have to raise some money to do this. And at the time, we had very little. My contribution to our marriage was a Honda Civic and a futon. So we did what every aspiring entrepreneur does. You go talk to your parents. And my dad made me a deal. He goes, whatever amount of money you can raise, I will match. And I said, okay. So I went home and I talked to my wife, and I took a big bag of clothes to Buffalo Exchange. Didn't get too far doing that. I sold my BMW because I didn't need to be that cool at the time. And we took a second mortgage on our house, and I came up with about $60,000. My dad was gracious enough to give us $60,000. So we had our project going. I got all gung-ho, hired an architect, started designing, really getting involved with the neighborhood, and I got a call from the city of Phoenix. Craig Demarco, yes, this is him. Are you opening a restaurant at 40th and Campbell? I said, yes. They said, well, you haven't got a use permit, or a parking variance, or a liquor license? I said, really? I said, yes, you need those things to open up a restaurant. I said, okay, I will be right down. Jumped to my wife's car, because I sold mine, and I ran down there. What I didn't realize was there was more involved with this. The good news is I'm pretty resilient, and I figured it out. I got another call from the city of Phoenix that said, okay, you're scheduled for a use permit hearing, but there's some opposition from your neighborhood. I said, really? Why would people be opposing us? I said, well, they're concerned. You're a young guy, you're 30 years old, you have a liquor license, you're from your neighborhood. I said, yeah, but they don't understand the concept. We're going to become a third place. We're going to become a place where the neighborhood can connect and meet. They said, well, you still have to go for those formal proceedings and go in front of city council. I said, okay. But I didn't realize at that time it was the largest neighborhood opposition to a restaurant use permit in the history of Phoenix. The neighborhood organized against us. 80 people showed up, petitions, and we decided we weren't going to give up on this dream, so we decided to fight it. We ended up winning, but I spent an extra $60,000 in legal fees and people to help us. The problem is I didn't have that $60,000. I just had barely enough, and if you can even imagine, we opened Postino for just about $120,000. I did whatever every other aspiring entrepreneur did. I applied for and maxed out every credit card I could get in the mail. So we finally got it open, and to be standing on the stage right here, recognized for having become a third place, is more rewarding than any financial, any of the money we've ever made. It's so thrilling. So, with that said, it gave us the confidence to tackle these other projects. And now, those of you who have been to our stores know that we have a pretty specific niche and criteria that we look at before we decide to do a new deal. One, we have to be able to become part of a community and neighborhood. That's it. I've got every call you can imagine for mall deals in this town, and they're very quick conversations. I really don't have any interest. I don't want to meet people or see people 1 or 2 times in their lives. I really want to connect. And I think my staff does also, and it allows me to hire better people that really believe and share that vision. We got approached recently to do a concession at the airport, and I just can't imagine going to work like that. I have the best job ever. I get to wake up every morning and see my neighbors and experience their lives and see their kids and watch them grow up. So I'm running a little low on time, so I'm going to go very quickly here. After Postino, had a little bit of success. We tackled Le Grand Orange. We did Le Grand Orange Pizzeria. We did Chelsea's Kitchen up at 40th Street in Camelback. And for those of you that didn't know, it was an old Western film studio in the 20s called Cugia Estates. That's important to me and to our partners because other than becoming part of a community and neighborhood, we care about the relevance of our locations, that they have historical and architectural relevance. And we created this little bubble in 40th and Camelback that we loved for years. 8 years after the original Postino opened, we thought it was about time to grow. So we went and looked for the location that would best suit our second sophomore effort. And we ended up in the North Central neighborhood. And I was talking to Tanya earlier, telling her how rewarding it is to be down there and the diversity of that neighborhood, the people I've gotten to meet. And we bought the old Cat's Deli. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was iconic for 20 plus years. It was a place where people met and connected, politicians, and I'm sure lots of crazy deals have gotten done there. And we rehabbed another older building without scraping it. And while this is going on, and I'm going to talk quickly here because I'm running out of time, we were eyeing this building across the street at Central and Oregon, where the Windsor sits now. And it was covered up by a foot of paint, layers and layers of it. And it was a very ugly building. It was structurally unsound. And it was a residential zoning. It was just a mess of a building. Annexed back in the 50s. The zoning was never cleaned up. Nobody knew what to do with it. It was 34 uses over the last 70 years. And when I was in high school, and my friends at Xavier and Brophy and Central, there was a liquor store there, and we would drive through and get our wine coolers and Keystone Light, and I'd slump down in the back because I wasn't shaving much back then. But it had this relevance to us, so we took a shot at buying it, and we were fortunate enough to be the ones that ended up with it. And we started peeling back the layers of that building. And it turns out it's all original red brick. It was 6 storefronts when they first designed it. It's just a beautiful building, tucked into the Windsor Square neighborhood. And we took it through a rezone, and the city was behind us on it, and it's been so fun to watch it come to life. We technically don't have a green or a LEED certified designation on it, but we kept as much as we could of the landfill. Every object in the space is a found object. All the chairs on our patio we bought from ASU Salvage. They were in the science department. We bought them for $1 each and recovered them. The chairs inside came out of school in Amsterdam. And I have gotten to meet this amazing historical neighborhood behind us. So a couple more points and I'm going to leave you. About 1.5 years ago, while we were doing business at Postino Central and starting development on the Windsor, we noticed that our section of Central Avenue had 6 lanes. And the traffic is horrific, for those of you that know it. After you get to Camelback to go south, there's a light rail that slows down, and when you get north of Missouri, closer to Bethany home, you have a wonderful bridle path, and it's very pedestrian, but this section here just doesn't fit. So we pitched to the city. Phil Gordon got me an audience with all the heads of the departments, and I went in there with my idealism and said, listen, we really want this to become something special, something more pedestrian. We want to see kids and bikes and dogs, you know, a safe place to be. And I got a call last week. They're going to take that stretch of Central to 4 lanes and put bike lanes in. And, thank you. I don't know politics that well. I mean, I know some of the players, but I think it starts with an idea. It's getting the right people in the right room and that higher purpose to do something and see it something bigger than what we are. And we hope it fills in and more great things happen. So, in summary, I really believe that all these places that are going to be talked about, and all the wonderful places you referenced, I would bet that those entrepreneurs and those operators jump out of bed each morning with the higher purpose feeling to connect people and create spaces where people have wonderful experiences. Thanks.